I just wanted to start by addressing a few comments from Ranking Member Whitehouse. I think it's important for all of us to recognize that we certainly all want clean water. As I mentioned, my state probably has the cleanest water of any place in the world. We're recognized for that. The state does a great job of protecting that. We care more about our clean water and clean environment than any bureaucrat from Washington, D.C. and the EPA, and I think that a lot of states feel the same way. And just to remind everybody here, this isn't, there were some comments about Republicans wanting to undermine the clean water. This is a bipartisan bill. This is a bipartisan bill. And I think a lot of members on both sides of the aisle recognize that there's some serious issues with this. We can all trot out that several different groups oppose or support this bill or the regulation, but it is pretty dramatic when 3/5 of the states of the United States have serious problems with this Federal regulation. Mr. Lemley, you mentioned 1 million comments. I think you might want to take a look at the New York Times article today on the front page, how those comments are coming about. I think the EPA's got a lot of questions that they need to answer. But let me start. I'd like to start with Ms. Metzger. How important to Kansas is clean water, and what does the state do in terms of focusing your state efforts on clean water?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd echo that state priority for Clean Water Act. The Clean Waters is similar as in your state. It is a high priority for our state. And I appreciate that in the Act it recognizes that just because waters might lack federal jurisdiction from protection, it doesn't lack the protection from state regulations. And perhaps even more importantly in Kansas, the cooperative non-regulatory partnership amongst our landowners. We have a really robust program in Kansas that relies on stakeholder feedback and stakeholder cooperation for voluntary approaches to addressing water quality approaches, and it's been very successful, that approach. We call it our watershed restoration and protection strategies. It takes funding from EPA and matches that with state and local dollars and allows us to put in really robust conservation practices. It allows us to achieve those types of successes I noted of being second in the nation in sediment reduction and sixth in the nation in phosphorus reductions.
Great. Let me ask both you and Mr. Piefor, in terms of consultation, when we held field hearings in Alaska, the universal kind of concern, almost universal, was that there was no serious consultation with key stakeholders, whether states, whether local municipalities. Can you two address the issue? Do you think that there was a significant or substantial or adequate consultation by the EPA with regard to this rule?
For Kansas, we felt that the consultation fell short of what's expected in the Executive Order 13132. Instead, the state comments were just relegated to some of those 1 million comment letters and really diluted our feedback.
In Colorado, we felt the same, that the consultation prior to the issuance of the rule was far short of what it should have been, because we believe we could have assisted the agencies in crafting a rule that wouldn't have proven so controversial.
Okay, thank you. I also want to go to this issue of whether this is an expansion of the Clean Water Act's jurisdiction or not. I believe, Professor Parenteau, you said it was a shrinking of the jurisdiction. I think even the EPA admits that it's an expansion. It's, they say it's about 3%, other states. But let me just ask a pure legal question. Does the EPA have the authority as a regulatory agency to unilaterally expand the jurisdiction of the Clean Water Act, or is that only the realm and the authority of Congress? Can
EPA is not expanding the
jurisdiction. Could you just answer the question that I posed?
No, EPA is not expanding the jurisdiction.
That's not the question I posed.
They're under an order basically, or at least...
Could you answer the question I posed? We don't have a lot of time here. Does the EPA have the authority to unilaterally expand the jurisdiction of the Clean Water Act, or is that only the realm of the Congress?
Mr. Chairman, I think he's entitled to answer your question as he sees fit.
Yeah. The answer is EPA has the authority to interpret the geographic scope of the Clean Water Act consistent with the way the courts, including the Supreme Court, have interpreted the language of the Act. That's exactly what EPA is doing.
Ms. Metzger, do you have an answer to that?
I can give the example of how we interpret the expansion under the proposed rule for Kansas. Currently, and what's approved by EPA as our waters of the U.S. in the absence of the proposed rule is what we consider those waters with designated uses that then are by state statute put into our surface water quality standards. And that encompasses about 30,000, a little better than 30,000 stream miles in Kansas. As we interpret the blanket definition of tributary in the proposed rule, that would result in about 174,000 stream miles. That's a 460% increase.
Thank you. Ranking Member Whitehouse.